Well, Charles, I'll tell you, people get pissed off when you're not on YouTube on Sundays.
Well, sorry to the viewers who didn't know about that in advance. We did try to warn people in that broadcast that we were going to skip a Sunday, but it's gratifying. It's gratifying in some ways that people care enough to complain. Thank you.
Now, Charles, you seem to be wearing a yellow hat.
What yellow hat?
Exactly.
Again, Jason, I don't know what you do in your off times. You start seeing things.
Yeah.
That, that yellow vest that I wasn't wearing, and now some yellow hat that I'm not wearing.
Does that say 78, Yale,
it does.
1978?
It does.
You're a
It hypothetically might. Yes, that's the year. I date myself, of course, but my age is not a secret. That's the year I was graduated, and in many ways, in fact, profound ways, I owe my existence to Yale, because
Really?
that's where my parents met.
Oh, that's true.
And so, I have waning affection for Yale because it's going so far off kilter in my view, but I bring it up just at the opening here as sort of, I don't even need to give a warning here, but you'll recall that I've mentioned to our viewership that the next crusade, once we make progress with here the Clinton Foundation and charity frauds, is to encourage, shall we say, the very rich endowed universities and foundations to get back into compliance with the law. So
Why would they do that?
Well, because it's going to be very expensive for them if they don't.
Huh.
And last year I had it was in October or thereabouts, I was invited to a pretty large gathering of people and got a chance to speak at length with the Dean of Harvard Business School and alerted to that person to the dangers posed by the Clinton Foundation. And on Thursday of last week, I was at a much smaller group. There's something called Yale Legacy Partners, which is a group of people who support the university. And I went in my father's place to that meeting, and there were maybe, 35, 40 people there. The dean of the Yale Law School gave a very good, she's an impressive person, a very good preview of what she'd like to see happen at Yale Law School and why she needs all kinds of new money. Sure. And so I got a private moment with her, and I said, listen, I'd like to brief you and your top professors who focus on charity law, because I've been involved with this independent investigation of a rather large, if not the largest ever, set of charity frauds.
And they said, who invited this guy?
No, of course I'd love to do it. Of course I didn't mention the name of the charity fraud or its direct connection to Yale Law School, but hence the theoretical hat that you see that I'm not wearing.
Right. Well, I would like to know, where is Eric Braverman? He's still apparently teaching something at Yale Law School.
No, I don't think is he teaching?
Oh, no longer?
I don't think so. I thought he went to go work for the
Schmidt Futures.
Schmidt.
Some mysterious, invisible position that he seems to have, working for Eric Schmidt, but never really seems to be around.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to talk a lot. But Charles, it's been a little while since we've had a show. You are busily preparing your book, of course, and last week we had no Sunday with Charles, but you've prepared another presentation for us today. Now, we're talking about a name that maybe people haven't heard before, and this is a movie. I remember when I was a kid, this movie being out, but I was pretty young and not that interested in it because it didn't have robots or cartoon characters in it. But now we've got a version that does. Robots and cartoon characters.
Yeah. Well, this is, this could be in the top 3 for the cover of the coffee table book. This is an outstanding job that you've done, taking an existing movie poster and then making it come to life for a different set of reasons. What we're going to get into today, we've endured now almost 2 years of, or no, more than 2 years of a Russian delusion, collusion, whining More than 500,000 stories in the supposed mainstream media on the subject that Donald Trump was off in Russia with, let's say, women of negotiable virtue doing things on the same bed where Barack Obama was. It's just preposterous stories. And the idiots. I mean, it's unfair to bimbos to call the male and female commentators at CNN and MSNBC and elsewhere who've just been stoking themselves up into a fury about the notion that Donald Trump is a Russian agent, blah, blah, blah. They're still talking about that. Yeah. I can't even watch the Sunday shows, including Fox's, anymore, because to give the notion of balance, they have to repeat the allegations and then say they weren't proven, but he wasn't exonerated. Anyway, the real story here goes, in my mind, well back beyond 2015-16 to the long period where the CIA was born, where it then, as a new entity started operating with the supposedly far more experienced MI6 in the UK and other security services, and then embarked on adventures around the world. Some may have worked, some didn't work spectacularly. Some may have worked spectacularly, but the whole point of it is this whole exercise of letting people you don't even really know who they are do things that aren't approved, not even tell you the whole story about what may have happened. And that whole idea is so far outside what I believe the Constitution originally contemplated, that a government would be a Republican government, reporting to the people, reporting to the electorate, responsible to the electorate, that we wouldn't be setting up a perpetual war-igniting machine so that large defense contractors could pump up our defense budget so that we're spending $700 billion a year when number two spending is like $100 billion. We're 325 million people. Number one country is 1.5 billion people. I mean, it's just so far out of kilter. And we fell, I think, particularly in the mainstream, what passes for media, should be called Madia, not media. We fell for this whole false set of discussions about, is Donald Trump a Russian agent? Yes or no? Is Russia good? Yes or no? When maybe the master manipulator behind all this is the gentleman in the lower left of this poster, one Richard Dearlove, now Sir Richard Dearlove, who was head of MI6 in the crucial period, late 1999, early 2004, and before that in, I think, MI6, when the Soviet Union imploded, when Mark Rich and others were looting the former Soviet Union, when the false narrative about weapons of mass destruction being in the possessions of the Iraqis was sold and used as a pretext for us to totally destroy how many different countries, how many different ways. Right. And this gentleman, I've never met him, maybe he's a nice person in real life, but highly, highly suspicious to me. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in, we're looking at this multiple different ways, and we discover that Dearlove has, in my mind, he, quote, retired from MI6 in 2004, but those people never retire. They're always back channels. They're always brought into this set of intrigues and that set of another intrigues, and they're always in the clubs and the boardrooms and elsewhere concocted.
Private intelligence companies.
Private intelligence companies, exactly. Cutouts, exactly. And so the question here is, now that Donald Trump has survived, frankly, which I think is, we shouldn't have to worry about whether the President of the United States would actually survive. Now that he has, in fact, survived to a point where however many Trump-hating people on the Mueller team were forced to dislodge their despicable, frankly, report, which, in my view and others' view, does not comply with the statute. Now that we've received a report from Mueller himself that says there was no Russian collusion, and that gamely, from Mueller's side, tried to sweep Trump into an obstruction discussion exercise by making this hypothetical 200-page.
They're still trying.
Trying to feed 200 pages of bullshit to the mentally deficient members of the House of Representatives, so that they can, on Hillary's orders, orchestrate an impeachment, so that she and Bill can have the false equivalence of saying, well, Bill was impeached and Trump was impeached, and therefore Bill's impeachment is not all that serious, and but Trump's is, because Bill wasn't a spy. Trump, this whole exercise that the Clintons would have the ability to have as much influence as they've evidently exercised while she was Secretary of State, after she left, while she was one of the worst candidates ever to run for president. I mean, honestly, I'm not interested in politics in the slightest, but I think Barack Obama was right when talking about, why she lost. He said, I think in a very wry way, he said, generally speaking, I've learned during campaigns that it's useful to show up in the states where voters may decide an election.
They told us the very first day of NYU Film School, one of my professors who I'm still in touch with said, first rule of filmmaking is show up.
Yeah, on time, right?
Well, just show up at all, I think.
But so here we have an exercise, I won't reveal the names, but some extremely well-known investigative journalists have been in touch with me over time, and one of them, I won't say who it is, was very funny and said, you've seen John Brennan on television or whatever, he's an idiot. There's no way John Brennan could have cooked this up. It had to be somebody outside the U.S. who got Brennan and got Comey and got another ridiculous human being, Clapper, to dance to the tune of a piper in a scheme to obstruct the general public from understanding just how badly we've been damaged as workers, salary workers, as people who are not stuck into the military, industrial, media, academia complex. These people behind the scenes don't want us to look back over this period, 1989, to the president and say, we could have been way over there. Instead, we're way down here under a crushing load of debt, watching robots take our jobs, allowing China and India and others to steal our secrets, and then set up companies and make vast amounts of money, importing stuff back into the United States, taking away middle-class jobs, imposing this crushing regimen of regulations that makes no sense. They don't want us to study all that. They want to set up a scenario where Democrats are pitched against Republicans. You get all these, Joe Coniston's a good writer, and I make fun of him regularly, so I'll do it again today. His books are all, the noble Bill Clinton and Democrats are taking on the evil, stupid Republicans. Every element of the book is the way he thinks about that stuff.
Charles, Laura on Periscope is telling us that $1,700 tickets for the Clinton tour are now available for $2.
We have actually...
It's a good value. I think people should take that $2 and instead of giving it to Bill and Hillary Clinton, they should become sponsors of Crowdsource the Truth. Sponsorship is a little bit down lately, Charles.
Got to change that.
Yeah, we definitely want to encourage. There's obviously a lot of interest, a lot of emails when we weren't on last week. So people should keep in mind that without the sponsorship of the viewing audience, the show will cease to be on at all. So if people enjoy the show, please go to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and become a sponsor. People can also send one-time sponsorship payments to paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth. And people who sponsor at $10 and higher are still getting volume 1 of the Screensaver, the Sunday with Charles Screensaver. I think we're getting close to being ready to make a volume 2, and I have been looking into various print technologies that might allow us to create a high quality but economical coffee table book.
Well, just since I'm the numbers guy, you mentioned $2 for the ticket, and I've got a comment on that.
Sure.
When I think about the choice, it's a big choice. $2 for a discounted ticket to watch those blowtards talk about anything, those criminal blowtards. Or I just happened to purchase a croissant this morning for $2.85 at a local. It's not even a close call. $2 for the ticket, or I don't know, $2 for all the fixings pizza that you can get not too far away from here.
There's a 99-cent pizza on the corner every day at 3 o'clock. All the homeless people and students are over there buying pizza.
But I walk by that, and at that place you get for $2, and it's gone up from $1.99 to $1. But at that place, That's just a cheese pizza. You could get all sorts of crap on it, whatever, for $2.
Pizza Bros or whatever that is.
Not even a close call, right?
Two bros.
Right.
Bros.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't eaten that.
But the art department, as usual, if subscriptions are down, maybe it's not a good time to talk about a raise, but the art department certainly deserves high accolades and praise.
Well, thank you, Charles. I wanted to spend a lot of time on this one because we've been away for a little while. You were talking about the formation of the CIA. As we've discussed, generally the way these art department endeavors work is that you suggest a movie and a theme, and then I put together the artwork. So this was a picture, I forget the actor, but he's like a Green Beret or something, and I covered the logo on the hat with this pin that I had found. I didn't even know about this thing, the increment, and I don't know what that is or what the name means, but it's some sort of conglomeration of the NSA, the CIA, GCHQ, and I couldn't tell if this was MI5 or MI6, but people who know what that logo is will be able to tell. And we're going to recall from previous conversations that Bill Binney has told me personally that GCHQ and NSA are essentially one and the same. Not that they cooperate, not that they collaborate, but he referred to them as one in the same, almost as if GCHQ created NSA. We've heard from other guests how nobody ever even heard of GCHQ until I think 1976, when some Russian infiltrators revealed the existence of it. And also we didn't know about NSA until 1974, I think the Church Committee hearings. So maybe I have my dates off, but interesting to know that these affiliations between these super secretive organizations exist. And certainly this Operation Crossfire Hurricane, the attempted coup over President Donald Trump, seems to have revealed things about the international intelligence community that maybe the people of the United States did not know prior to President Trump.
Yeah, I guess, when people come to me and talk about a business proposition and they say, we can't tell you everything about the company because it's engaged in this issue or that issue. And I say, well, I can tell you, I can tell you everything about my non-interest in knowing anything more about the company. And similarly, I sign on to the idea that there should be a level of secrecy that is super high,
right?
But there should not be a level of secrecy so high that even the president can't know about it. That's bogus.
Who's in charge?
Exactly. That is just bogus. I would not be surprised if there is such an approach, because you'd say, well, the people, you can't trust the will of the people. Who knows? The people who didn't like Barack Obama. Well, how can we let him know everything? He's won the election, but we can't let him know. And similarly, Donald Trump. That's dangerous thinking, right?
I would also argue, Charles, I think that we need to have a better system for selecting the people who become the members of the House Intelligence and the Senate Intelligence Committees, because these are supposed to be our representatives who oversee these unelected, clandestine bodies. Now, I think we can all agree that we want government transparency, but at the same time, to the extent that law enforcement agencies are a part of the government, they need to keep certain things about their operations secret, or else criminals will know what they're doing and be able to obviously defy prosecution. So we need to have a really well understood and carefully regulated process by which our representatives oversee this stuff. What are Adam Schiff's qualifications for being in that? And frankly, what are Devin Nunes's qualifications? Even though I might like some of the things that Nunes has done, him doing other things like suing Twitter and working with this lawyer Stephen Biss, who's got a very questionable background, raised certain questions about his qualifications for being involved in this type of intelligence, oversight.
Yeah, I think you raised some excellent points. I mean, there is, I think, a basic organizational flaw in the way in which the regulatory system is set up. The regulators are basically way outmatched by the people that they're trying to regulate. They're not given the tools, they're not given the money. The people are up against...
They're spied on by them.
They're spied on, and beyond that, the people they're up against are prepared to, to break every conceivable law and even manufacture evidence and, change evidence, as we're going to get into. There's a shocking revelation that out of some documents that we just saw for the first time Friday night. That's going to truly shock me. So this is an important show, and I'm delighted that we can get together again after this brief interlude. But I suggest, given the amount of information that we're going to talk about, we maybe just go right into the slides.
Sure, let's do that.
Okay, so we've been saying this, building this thought up for a while, that it is past time for a real investigation. I've been consistent on this in this show and many appearances. I am really interested in what happened in the 2015-16 election, but I'm even more interested in the degree to which the United States and other non-state and other allies and state and non-state actors have been interfering in elections around the world. I'm not narrowly interested in did foreigners do it to us, because if you go out and you just walk down the street and you start punching every person you see in the face, you shouldn't be surprised that eventually somebody's going to punch you back.
Right.
And so, we have, in some cases for good reasons and others for horrible reasons, been involved interfering in many elections around the world to the detriment of those nations.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And the big story, I think, when people actually write about what truly did happen, forget this tome that Hillary sits on, her toilet sits on, and this thing over here. When people really discern what truly happened, the big story is going to be U.S. taxpayer dollars and government resources were used to rig the Democratic primaries, to encourage Donald Trump to be the supposed patsy, to go up against the juggernaut, Hillary Clinton. And then when that didn't actually happen, they were used to try to yank Donald Trump out of the White House, with threats that he'd be forever put in jail and persecuted for the rest of his life. That's the real story to me. It's not, it's not did Donald Trump, make this inaccurate remark or make light of this person the wrong way or do this negative thing or that. The real issue here is that we entrusted not just Barack Obama, we entrusted the leaders of the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, all sorts of people in the House and the Senate and both parties in the states to regulate the elections. And shame on the people who were supposed to keep the election, the integrity of the results of the election sacrosanct. Shame on them. It's not like this is a first idea we've had of an election gone awry. We do remember 2000. And all the caterwauling then
Chads.
Hanging chads and this and that. It's not like we're sitting here as I don't mean to pick too hard on, let's say, Somalia, but it's not like we're relying on the Somalian Silicon Valley to come up with new, technologies in America. We have a Silicon Valley, we have a New York Alley, we have, robust support for advances in technology. If we felt that our state, the election process, which is administered by the states, was vulnerable, why didn't Barack Obama do something about that? Why didn't the many governors do something about it? Why does it take, Hillary Clinton in her fit of pique, appearing in purple with Bill in a purple tie, trying to foment a purple revolution, not too subtly, by the way, the day after she was pounded, not yet into oblivion the way she should be.
Charles, the Silicon Valley of Somalia is that beach where they select all the pirates for the day's excursion, as we saw in that movie with Tom Hanks.
Yeah, I don't think the patent office is getting many applications out of Somalia.
You should ask Wilbur Ross.
Yeah, so that's the real story, that we've been treated to, nobody likes a Russian accent, in theory. I actually find them kind of amusing. And
they wear on you.
But everybody in this country is a sucker for an English accent. You get a cultured English accent. Oh, that person's a genius.
Well,
They could be reading, complete insanity. And
good voiceover for documentaries, right?
Right, exactly.
It always sounds smarter and British.
Right. And why do all actors, the theater actors, always gravitate towards an English accent? Because people assume you're smart. I remember in business school, I show up the first day there, I was a 22-year-old kid. I didn't know jack about business. I didn't even know why I was there. Exactly. And this English guy stands up and starts, summarizing the class at the end of the first class. And I thought he was Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, this guy was like with an English accent. And by the end of the 2 years, the guy barely graduated. He just, he sounded good at first because he had an English accent. And similarly, the English, I've got many friends in England, and I have high hopes for the country, though it's in a mess and has been for.
They need more orthodontists in England.
They need water, clean water. Get that mercury out of the water.
Oh, do they have too much mercury in the water?
They have big problems, yeah.
Huh. Didn't know that. That is a big problem.
But, I like the folks over there. I think there's a lot to recommend in trying to reconstitute the alliance with people who like capitalism and fairly regulated capitalism and sort of playing by those pesky things we call law. Or laws, great opportunity to recast the alliance with the UK. But when we look back over the period, particularly really right about the time that Bill Clinton sashayed or moseyed or whatever the right word, slimed his way into the White House on January 20th, 1993. From that period really to the present, we got to go back over a lot of ground here and understand just what misadventures we've either led them into or they've led us into or we've conspired both to go into, and why all of that has happened. Why are we sitting as the United States? Yeah, we're better off in theory, in aggregate sense, than we were in 1992, but are middle class workers better off? I don't think so.
Why are we better off than we were in 1992? I feel like we still had freedom of speech, and people weren't losing their bank accounts for having differing political opinions. Our friend Laura's just been kicked off of Facebook. She went there to visit them, and I mean, people may dislike Laura, but I think that even if you do, it's really unfair to have so much pressure put on someone for, Laura's not going around doing violent crimes. I mean, even these trespasses that she's doing, they're nonviolent activism, and, people who think it's funny that Laura's losing her livelihood and her platform and her ability to create a career as a journalist, they won't think it's so funny when their ability to speak out is taken away, or their ability to have a bank account or earn a living is taken away, and it's a pretty serious deal. It's
a very serious deal, and I hope, Donald Trump is tweeting out regularly now, and others are making plain that the government is serious about re-examining the way in which these high-tech companies operate, and I'm speaking here of the user-based high-tech companies that offer you something free that you think is that you're getting the smart deal without knowing that they're offering you something for free. They're offering you the chance to turn around and give them things of enormous value. That if the deal were fairly marketed to you, if they said, "Hey, Jason, you want to be a Facebook user? If you're on the Facebook for so many minutes a month, you're basically giving me $1,000, right? But would you like the service for free?" And Adam Schiff would probably say, "Oh, that's a good idea," because he's an idiot. But anybody who understands numbers and math would say, "Why am I going to give you all this stuff for free that's going to allow you to make $1,000 off me, spread over 1 billion users? Why do I want to do that?"
Right.
And so there needs to be, if you're going to offer something in the for-profit arena and you have publicly traded shares, which they do, you're supposed to report fairly about the true state of your business, the risks, the opportunities, et cetera. There are a lot of guidelines on all this. You're trading shares across state lines using various means. You're committing security fraud.
That's really the most interesting angle, Charles, because in addition to that, there's this other problem of fake accounts or sock puppet accounts, accounts that represent a user, but we don't know how many users have multiple accounts that are, they're using to stir up nonsense in comments. But, if YouTube says, "Hey, we have 1 billion users," and they're selling advertising based on the number of views, how do I, as an advertiser, know if it's an actual person who's viewing or some fake account controlled by artificial intelligence? It seems like a fraud to be selling advertising without having a true accounting of who's an actual user and who's a fake account.
Well, and really you have to take a step back and say, let's think about this puzzle. Are we talking about a company, Or are we talking about a system that, in quotes, enlightened, in the real adjective would be deviant, leaders of a select group of nations have gotten together and said, this is a good way to control the population. We'll get them onto Facebook, we'll get them onto Twitter, we'll get them using Google, we'll get them into these things. We'll compile all this information that can be mined to think about, exposed to these stimuli, what will a human being do under these conditions and those conditions, or whatever.
Got 10 years of data on that.
And you're mining all that stuff. Suddenly you can predict. After this show ends, Jason's going to do that. Charles is going to do this. That. And the powers that be may have already gone to Zuckerberg, gone to Dorsey, gone to these people and say, listen, we're going to kind of give you a pass on these pesky securities laws that other people have to follow because we own you. We want, everything, and I'm very much against, I believe it is the case, not necessarily proven, very much against the idea that the NSA or the CIA, the FBI, should have the ability to invest in a Facebook or invest in a Twitter.
What about In-Q-Tel?
Or I'm very much against that, because if you're suddenly putting yourself, if the rules of the game, of any game, are everybody except me has to play by the rules, and the me is the referee.
Right.
That's not a game I'm playing.
Yeah.
And that's not the game that we signed up as Americans to play.
Well, it's also not capitalism, is it? That's
it's
crony capitalism.
It's a shooting fish in a barrel crony capitalism.
Right.
So I think we're in a place now, and we didn't come up with this title because Hunter Biden is in the news, but now that I think about it, maybe subtly I was influenced to do it.
Maybe we should have put him in the picture.
Yeah, but here we have Joe Biden catapulted to 30-point lead in a non-poll.
Just catapult him to the middle of the ocean.
whereas Peter Schweitzer's, I think, been on television today talking about the fact that coming week or so we're going to have a lot more information about a Bank of China $1 billion support for Hunter Biden's projects. I mean, we're right now in a moment where Donald Trump has survived long enough that you would be even dumber than Adam Schiff to believe, and that's pretty dumb. You'd be even dumber than Adam Schiff and Hillary Clinton to think that Donald Trump is not going to continue and push and push and push. And hence, from the corridors of the swamp in media, academia, big enterprises, for-profit, not-for-profit, investment firms, and the bureaucrats, the hues and cries we're going to see in the coming week against Trump, I think, will get bigger and bigger. And accordingly, this is a time, in my mind, for Donald Trump to drop some Moabs. I mean, these people are rightly fearful of what Donald Trump's going to do next. It's time to act. It's time to really drop some bombs. And we're going to try to help him do that.
Figuratively speaking.
Figuratively speaking, of course. So for your new viewers, and you steadily climb, I think, both on the Twitter and...
Well, it's interesting, Charles. There's actually been a decline on YouTube, and I can't say that I understand how this happens, but, I don't know if it's an incline since our last show, but there's been this really weird sort of thing happening where it was up to 81,000, I think as high as 81,900, but now it's retreated to 81,682, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because there have been some phenomenal guests. Had a conversation right here with David Icke that was broadcast yesterday, 6,000 views. Been speaking with John Carmen, the former Customs agent, Border Patrol, Customs and Border Protection, who spoke about the John Heinrich overflight list that he discovered, which was a totally illegal list that granted certain aircraft and individuals from Mexico the right to enter the United States without being checked by Customs. So these are some pretty interesting stories, but yet, despite the fact that thousands of people per day are watching, the subscribership is going down. I don't know if that's YouTube deciding to unsubscribe people, but even if people think they're subscribed to Crowdsource the Truth, they should check on their YouTube and make sure that they remain subscribed, and of course become a sponsor on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. But I don't know why it's shrinking.
Well, it'll go back in the correct direction, I have a feeling. For the new viewers, though, for people who haven't really given this as much thought, this is a different type of a program. We're not just laying down the law and spouting talking points or letting guests, when we have them, come on and spew talking points. This is a collective exercise. We're trying to give you the benefit of research that I and others have done and Jason has done, and give you an opportunity in your own spare time to check what we're telling you, to build on what we're telling you. If you think we're making a mistake, you please contact us either on my website or on our various Twitter accounts. But this is a cooperative exercise, and indeed we're going to shortly be taking you through, in a few minutes, a massive dump of information that we really need help from the crowd looking through, particularly anybody who knows what an FBI file should look like, what key markings and notations on these files mean, what might be missing, what are the significance of the things we're going to take you through beyond the obvious words that we can understand. So we try to get you involved, and we appreciate the involvement of so many of you through the course of these now many podcasts. And I guess the playlist, Jason, this is our 157th show, I think.
Yeah, that's right, Charles. The playlist keeps growing, so that's good. People who want to check out all of the episodes of Sunday with Charles, or the presently on hold Charles Ortel is closing in, you can just come to the playlist here on the Jason Goodman YouTube channel, which is the main home for Crowdsource the Truth. Over 19,000 views on the playlist alone, Charles.
That's good. That's good. And I'm hoping, it's getting to a point now where we're going to want to do, need to do stories, and I've got several venues I can do it, where we just say, this is gaining traction now, but we first told you about this on this date. This is gaining traction, but look where we showed you this way back when. So we'll do some of that retrospective stuff as we make more progress in the forward-looking stuff. In the meanwhile, I guess what is this Mexican festival about mayonnaise?
Mayonnaise. I don't know anything about mayonnaise, Charles. I did make my own mayonnaise one time, so I know a little something about mayonnaise.
It's somehow a packet ended up right here on Donald Trump's left hand of mayonnaise. He's celebrating.
I don't know if people can see Donald Trump's left hand. He's got a packet of mayonnaise there. That's some fancy mayonnaise. I forget where I got that, but that's like Sir mayonnaise or
Sir Mix-a-Lot mayonnaise. Or something?
I don't know what's going on with that mayonnaise, but it's sort of trying to be a cut above. Do you know, on the west coast of the United States, Hellman's mayonnaise is called
mayonnaise or something like that.
No, it's called like All Food or something. And it even says, known east of the Mississippi as Hellman's. And I was like, why did they change that, perhaps?
But wanted to give a special shout out to the folks over at ukcolumn.org. And you see on the right next to that, it says check out at the very bottom there.
Oh, yes.
Just hit that link, please.
ukcolumn.org.
Yeah, this is a team of people, principally based in the UK, but tied all over the world, that has this great site and does a lot of opinion and analysis work with using people who are grounded experts, and also I think guest speakers from time to time. But this has been going on for a while. It's both text and videos and opinions, etc. And it's definitely worth following. I follow it closely. Had the privilege of talking to some of the people there. And I'd encourage folks to get to know this great organization.
I'm surprised they don't have much on here about Julian Assange.
We'll see what they're over time. We'll see whether that changes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they also, I think, pull from other sites, and it's just useful to get to know them and to follow them. Now, we've had this phrase in the past. I think it's in The Old Man and the Sea, Ernest Hemingway. The old man is asked, how do you go bankrupt? And the answer is slowly, then suddenly. and I think this counterattack against the deep state has taken some might argue, much longer than we had all hoped to see happen. But maybe the reason that it's taking so long is that Donald Trump and his team don't want to do a half-assed job. They don't want to just accept the idea that one patsy will be served up. Take Clapper as an example. Clapper did everything. He was wholly responsible. Nobody else. Don't look at anybody else. Perhaps it's the case that Donald Trump has been laying, and his team have been laying traps, really, during the campaign and now afterwards, that he's been waiting for the right moments to strike. And I think that makes sense. If you're going to take down the deep state abusers, then you better be pretty sure of your ground. You also better have some accomplishments to talk about away from this exercise. And those have taken time. And the people who wanted to resist him on tax reform, on judicial reform, you name it, the enemies, America's true internal enemies, understand that this is a zero-sum game. If Trump wins, many of them are going to lose, and some will lose their freedom, maybe for quite a long time. So we've been waiting, everybody's waiting. I think we're starting to see signs that stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Now, Dan Bongino, this second one here, has, in Zero Hedge picks it up, has a piece where Bongino is never shy for words, and I actually enjoy listening to him, and watching him on television. But what he is saying here is that forget the Spygate narrative. This is entrapment. That what people in the FBI, CIA, elsewhere, and the political apparatus around Obama were doing is they were purposely trying to take less experienced people, George Papadopoulos and others, who were quite junior and not that experienced, and set them up using taxpayer funds and other resources to entrap the Trump campaign. That is not something that the President of the United States team is supposed to be doing. And you can imagine if the hue and cry, just take the characters and the plot and forget about Obama, replace Obama with Trump, and replace the contender to Trump with Beto O'Rourke, or God forbid Hillary Clinton in 2020. If Trump did to whoever will end up attempting to best him in 2020 what the Obama team seems to have done against Trump, you'd have cities burned down over that.
Rachel Maddow would
she'd
explode
probably
into the
that's right.
night sky.
Right on air. And we shouldn't, Barack Obama was fond of saying, these aren't our values all the time when he wanted to criticize something. It certainly is not widely accepted by even 51% or more of the American population that it's A-OK for the outgoing president and his team to spy and then attempt to influence and overthrow the will of the people in a national election. That's just not okay.
Is that bad?
That's pretty bad. Yeah. So then we have the question of these people who show up in the Papadopoulos book and some of the better analysis of what could have happened. This Mifsud character, the Stefan Halper character, he's central in the narrative with Papadopoulos, and then the guy just disappears, and nobody says, well, where'd he go? And who's paying for him? And he's positioned as being a Russian spy by the deep state. It seems far more likely to people who look into this from various places around the world that he has close ties with the UK spying establishment. And there's just too many coincidences here where people attached to the false narrative, as it turns out, that Trump was a Russian agent, have roots, multiple connections into, whether it's Dearlove, other people at MI6, people around the British establishment, and what passes for the establishment. And when we think about what passes for the establishment in the UK, and we ask, does the establishment in the UK have a lot to lose from a Trump presidency? It's not as if in 2016 that Barack Obama, the high and mighty, who's all up in arms about people meddling in other people's elections and referendum. It's not like he got on Air Force One and went to the UK and in a public address said, you better not Brexit because you'd be in the back of the line in a trade deal unless you remain. It's not as if he said, oh, yeah, he did do that. Actually, in the UK, he went and did that.
Did he buy any Facebook ads to do that?
And it's not like, Rachel Maddow was going, oh my God, I can't believe this is a disaster. I mean, remember, she's a Rhodes Scholar. It's not like, she had anything negative to say on that, or the fact that in Kenya there was an election and a distant relative of Obama, lost, and the United States got involved saying, well, maybe, let's encourage the loser to threaten violence so that we can redo the election. It's not like that happened. Well, that did happen. So here we are under the Obama administration, and to be fair, previous administrations, Republican and Democrat alike, feeling that we can meddle in other people's elections, but we are going to have the cause célèbre that we've had now since November 8th, 2016, where even today Hillary Clinton can have the nerve to address audiences and say, see, in this country I'm concerned about it because I won the election and it was stolen from me.
Yeah, I mean, she's created this false sense. Even intelligent people, or people who I thought were intelligent, they believe that there is evidence that Donald Trump worked with Russia to meddle with the election.
Right.
But we haven't seen a single element of tangible evidence that shows that.
Yeah, and you can't fix stupid. I mean, right? Stupid is as stupid does. But so when we think about this, these obvious problems that are now roaring to the forefront, that have taken months and months, some cases years, to be mainstream thinking. You remember when Donald Trump said early on, my wires were tapped.
Yeah.
And you had everybody, Tom Brokaw and all
mocking
these
them.
This guy's obviously just a real estate guy from Queens. What does he know about government? Well, he was dead right.
Yeah.
And probably worse than we yet know. And so when you think about this, that we could have had so much mismanagement, not just under Obama, but under George W. Bush and Bill Clinton and others, so much screwed up in goings-on involving high government officials and foreign powers and people we're not even sure who they are actually working for. So many misadventures. Now we begin to understand why it makes sense to go back over Obama's push for an Iran deal, why he would be so quick to meet with the guy who came before Maduro and the folks at Cuba. But look at this. I mean, we're now getting this. Maybe this is fake news. Maybe it isn't. But a top person in Venezuela is actually sneaking Hezbollah into Venezuela and getting involved with drug trafficking and all this kind of stuff. And the know-it-alls, and Nancy Pelosi, we don't have a problem on our southern border. Well, we don't have a problem at all. I mean, Hezbollah, what are they? They're just, they're just guarding. They're the JV. No, they're not the JV. And who are they backed by? They're backed by Iran. Why are we putting up with this? Why are we even, deigning to have diplomatic talks with Iran if this is what they're going to do? I mean, it's not like Iran comes anywhere close to us in economic power, military power, political power, influence around the world, and we're getting pretty close to a point where folks are going to say, look, we're not, you cease these provocations. In Venezuela, in elsewhere, outside your borders, cease them immediately. You can't afford them. You're barely paying for your own government in Iran. So, I don't know what's going on here. We then have this new edition, you're on the right thing here, this new edition of a book put out by the famous New York Times journalist Peter Baker. And this is a new edition, but it basically has new vignettes about how Barack Obama felt it was insulted that Hillary Clinton lost. It's a classic political move. I had nothing to do with this. It's not my fault. That her loss was an insult to him.
I don't understand that.
Well, I mean, his legacy. His legacy, I think, is you're familiar with it, the legacy that's left of Carthage, right?
No.
There are two main warring, cities, Rome and Carthage. And the Romans, I think, decided, see you later, Carthage. And there ain't no Carthage anymore. There's nothing left. Not only did they destroy it, centuries ago, They destroyed everything, and then what they would do in those days is they would put stuff into the ground to make the place uninhabitable, so it could never come back.
Wow.
That's what could happen to Obama's legacy.
Is that why the United States is using depleted uranium? Maybe it's the same sort of idea to drop, not only to destroy the place, but to make it uninhabitable for generations?
And how about this for a tell? He likened himself to Michael Corleone in The Godfather. I mean,
Obama did.
yeah.
While watching Doctor Strange to distract himself.
Instead of going to the, yeah.
What?
I think
got
I'll
a lot
watch.
of time on his hands. He's watching, but they're promoting Marvel right here. That's so weird.
Right.
That's in the. I like that movie, Doctor Strange, but why do we care that Obama's watching?
Well, I think it's a little bit damn strange that the President of the United States on election eve would be watching Doctor Strange.
Right.
Doesn't he
He's-
have better things to do?
Netflix and chill, Charles. That's the idea.
And then we have, this is amazing, Comey out in Los Angeles giving a radio interview,
Oh, that's too bad.
attempting to defend himself and saying that his conduct was absolutely proper. You know, when they, concerning rooting out Russian stuff with Crossfire Hurricane, but making the mistake of alluding to the fact that he had many contemporaneous minutes that he had written, which we haven't seen quite yet. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
He's like the Homer Simpson of law enforcement.
I know.
Don't.
Yeah.
Oh lordy, I wish there were notes.
And on this one, it is May 9th, I believe, this coming week. So we're 4 days from now. There's going to be some kind of a CNN special, or one of the networks special, town hall of James Comey.
Where is that going to take place?
I don't know exactly. Nice picture of Stroke.
He's such a weirdo. It looks like he's wearing like eye makeup or something.
It looks like he's wearing a mask.
Yeah, he's like the Joker. There's a new Joker movie coming out. They should use Peter Stroke to play the Joker.
Yeah. So Comey is going to get, I think, some significant pressure put on him. But to your point about the Bill and Hillary Clinton speaking tour, this was in the Post as well. You know, it just stands to reason. I mean, I don't understand, with so much free media out there and so much stuff that's actually compelling that you might buy, why you would want at this day and age to go and be photographed, because you're going to be photographed, walking into a venue to sit and listen to these bounders talk about anything. You know, I don't get it. It's like, you know, signing up to be a loser.
Yeah, I still had to pay over $200 to see An Evening with the Clintons, which people can watch on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. But it's good to see that their numbers are plunging, Charles.
Yeah, it's a pity we can't short the ticket price. But anyway, if you look here, this is Bill Clinton. These people, they don't believe the same set of rules apply to them that apply to everyone else. I mean, I think he's talking about himself there.
Exactly.
But the story is written as if he's talking about the Trump. This is called gaslighting.
Yeah.
This is the gaslighting corruption tour. You know, he's announcing the new Clinton graft initiative. You know, right?
That's not new. That's been his policy for the past 40 years.
Yeah, the new and expanded Clinton graft initiative. We got another grandchild coming.
50% free.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he said so much nonsense during that conversation in the video that I created. He's trying to make himself appear, you know, relatable. Chelsea calls him at one point talking about how she's not going to accept some scholarship. And Chelsea asked him, well, can you afford the bill for college? He's like, well, I think I can. I'll borrow money if I can. You got $1 billion in laundered money in a shed, in an unregistered shed right outside.
He doesn't necessarily want Chelsea to know how much all his mistresses cost. So.
Right.
But, you know, then we have this Seattle. I thank many people that my great-grandfather, who left Chicago and then originally settled in Seattle but decided not to settle there and moved to Spokane. But this one here is an article, you know, basically extolling the situation in Seattle where Bill and Hillary Clinton, you know, are preaching to, it says here, preaching to pure blue in Seattle. In other words, adoring fans and Amazon's first headquarters city, where there's
right.
Microsoft. They're all out there. All the people who love unregulated globalism, they want to listen to this stuff. And I suppose that's because the Starbucks coffee is so bitterly bad, and it rains all the time in Seattle, that they have nothing better to do than to go listen to these people. But I think it's at a stage now where one needs to be questioning sanity of the people who could praise the Clintons today, of the people who would make these decisions, these very bad decisions. You're past a point where you would be able to pass any kind of impartially administered sanity check, in my view, to be an adoring supporter of the Clintons today. You're just way past that.
Exactly.
So then, for those who wonder what's taking so much time, this is a very interesting, and we won't even go past the cover, but this is a memo for people who like facts, written by a very famous law firm, about the concept of piercing the corporate veil of a New York not-for-profit corporation. Now, in the case of the Clinton, just if we stay on that first page, in the case of the Clinton, this came out in 2003. All right. So what was going on in 2003? By 2003, this supposed entity, technically called the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation, had been operating an unregistered, massive office in New York, with very few people out in Arkansas, failing to file tax returns, filing false and materially misleading state forms everywhere, filing all kinds of lying forms all over the place. So the first question you might be, if you're a stickler, you say, like, is it a not-for-profit organization? Well, the answer to that question is no. But the bigger, as Stuart Dean said 2 years ago now, the bigger question is it even an organization at all? And what happens when you pierce the corporate veil? What happens when you pierce the corporate veil is the promoters who dominated this organization to the point where it didn't really exist, the promoters get tagged, on the one hand, with gigantic income tax liability, because the revenue that they claim they put through the foundation, people say there was no foundation. That was your revenue. You had the power to, you should have paid personal income tax on that. And then the major gain that you get when you operate one of these things correctly, you're no longer insulated from liability. Not only are you not insulated, you should be thinking yourselves, the Clintons, and the professional firms around the Clintons, as liability magnets. People like Larry Klayman will think about this and they'll say, wait a minute, they've declared $3.2 billion of revenue and all these expenses, and this thing was never really an organization? I want some of that. I want some of that. There's some deep pockets around this debacle. And anyway, for people who want to understand what it means when we talk about piercing a corporate veil, there's a lot of minutia in this. Yes, the Clintons would start out to say, we're not a New York corporation, we're an Arkansas corporation. But when you read through the legal decisions and consult lawyers, they say that facts, not this kind of fiction stuff, as in what happened under the Chappaqua toilet bowl book, facts matter. And people will look at the hard facts here, and can only conclude, certainly by 2003 and absolutely in the present, that there never was any validly organized organization that purports to be part of this Clinton charity network. And people have had a lot of time to study this surprising conclusion, and a lot of time to study it thinking that, well, maybe the Clintons will be a force to be reckoned with, maybe the Obamas will be a force to be reckoned with, maybe Trump will just disappear. You can't go into that hidey hole right now. You got to go to a different place. Trump's going to be around. Trump's going to be around. The facts are not on your side. The law is not on your side. Time is not on your side. And the people of the United States will unite around the concept that laws should apply to everyone equally, and that there are few things worse than operating a charity as a self-enrichment cash machine for you and your family and your political backers. Few things worse than that. Unfortunately for the Clintons, they may have done that too. So those worse things too. So if we go back into the slide, we have, this is actually reasonably funny, this one here. It turns out that a fake website, and I don't get that blocker out of there, but a fake website purporting to be Joe Biden's official campaign website is getting more traffic than Joe Biden's official campaign website.
That's great. I mean, that's kind of like Devin Nunes sues Devin Nunes' cow Twitter handle, and it gets more Twitter followers than he does.
And it's really pretty embarrassing. I mean, I would have thought that I want nothing to do with a political campaign, but if I were involved with one, and I had anything to say to the candidate, I would say to the candidate, listen, you're not going to that venue unless it has some minimum number of people. You're not going to show up in Columbia, South Carolina to an empty, three-quarter empty high school gymnasium, because that's not going to help you.
Looks bad.
When Donald Trump can pull people and get people to drive, 1,000 miles to and pay for their own hotel to go to a rally, and you can't fill up a high school gymnasium, you shouldn't be counting on a long, remaining political life in this 2020 campaign, I don't think. But who knows? The fake polls have him up 30 points.
Well, I'll tell you what, Charles, to me, this seems like a better gauge. This is probably more accurate than one of these, scientific polls, because here people are more interested in him being embarrassed than him actually being president. So I don't think he's going to win.
Right. So the last, before we get to this mega bombshell thing, I understand that the Clinton family has decided to attempt to compete against us in podcasting.
Right.
And actually, people who like to compete, as I think we both do, welcome to the party. They are far more experienced people than we are, better funded, much bigger natural audience. But now maybe YouTube will manipulate the results. But let's just see how well their podcasts do versus our podcasts do on the metrics that we have access to. And I think, to help them out, Jason, I believe someone in the art department came up with a suggested name for their podcast.
Right. Well, this was, based on the popular 1990s characters, Bent and Stinky. This would be a good podcast for the Clintons, I think.
Yeah. And who is Bent?
Well, is Ren.
No, I'm saying
Clinton.
Ben is obviously Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
It's a family audience, so we can't go to why
exactly.
he's Ben.
Yeah,
Stinky,
I didn't even know about that.
Stinky, exactly. Stinky is from the Podesta emails, the WikiLeaks emails, in which he says, God, Hillary Clinton, she stinks.
That is a terrible thing.
Yeah. But anyway, if they go out under Bent and Stinky, they might get some real viewers. I mean, we might have to actually think about doing a fake Bent and Stinky.
Bent and Stinky podcast?
Yeah, a short version.
We can look into it for sure.
So now to the bombshells.
Bombs away, Charles.
So what I want to do here, this is a document that dropped sometime in the afternoon, I think, on Friday, and to our friend Kevin brought it to my attention. And what we've got for people is a link to the actual document. If we go back to the right there. There's a link for all of you to look through. You might want to print it out. And there are many more, probably twice as many things I could have put in here, but in the interest of time, I just felt we can't spend 4 hours today on this, but let's just pick a few things. So this is the 32nd piece of a drop that began right before the election in 2016 by the FBI itself, officially from the FBI, of documents that were in the possession of the FBI and have become in the possession of the FBI that for some reason are dribbling out into the public domain on an episodic basis. And if we can go to page 28 and then 29 into that document. Start with 28.
Oops.
Ooh, slide's gone.
Sorry.
It's all right.
28?
Yeah, 28. Yeah. A little bit further.
There we go.
Yeah.
28.
Okay. Notice that this is from Justin to Hillary, and we go to in the middle of the page. This is on November 22nd, 2008. Now, to refresh your recollection, the MOU was signed by Valerie Jarrett, the version that Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch got. That was signed on November 16th, according to her signature, 2008. The announcement that Hillary Clinton was in contention, the suspicion that she was in contention to be Secretary of State, and the announcement that she was going to be Secretary of State did not happen until after this moment. She was announced in I think, December 1st or thereabouts. So why is she conspiring, with Justin Cooper, who is working, I believe, for the Clinton Foundation? What is this about getting a new laptop and backup drive and programs? Why are you so interested in this right now? When we get to the next page, I need to get email set up on laptop so I could use. I need to learn how to use it.
Isn't he the IT director? He needs to learn how to use a laptop?
No. This is to, but it's from Hillary. Hillary's saying I need to understand how to use email.
Got it.
Right? If we go back into the slides,
She doesn't know how to use a laptop.
let's look at page 56. I mean, call me foolish. This is an email, April 4th, 2014. It's from, we don't know who, to this person, Monica Hanley. We don't know who is CC'd. They're taking
somebody at Gmail.
Right, but if we look here, on the 25th of March, 2014, hi guys, just following up on this. Let me know when the wiped laptop is ready to be shipped. Best to send it to the foundation, the Clinton Foundation, at Hillary Rodham Clinton, care of the Clinton Foundation. March 25th, 2014, right? She's looking for a wiped laptop.
So it sounds like it would be from Hillary at gmail.com.
Right, it doesn't...
Bleach Bit,
I mean,
CEO at gmail.com.
And the FBI has had this email for a long time here. Okay, it only now chooses... And you're telling me that the crack team that kicked down Manafort's door, figuratively, kicked down Roger Stone's door, you can't look at this and say, obviously, I want a search of all the emails. I want, however we have to do it, by any means possible, lawful means possible, all of the emails. We're going to go back over this ground, who authorized this private server system, private device system, and why was it authorized, and why is it taking so damn long to get all this information, and why, when you see something like this, is let me know when the wiped laptop, why this is even allowed to go out there. Why was she coordinating this from the Clinton Foundation?
Why'd they redact this?
I don't know, but the FBI clearly has the unredacted version of all this. Right, so let's go back into the old slides.
Checking back on this blank, is it still with you?
It could be Uma, is it still with you? So if we go to the slides, I'll give you the page, and maybe if we, 86. The defense here for all this messing around. At one point, the attempted talking point defense was, well, the private server system, it wasn't perfect, but we were never hacked, right? Here's an email. It says, on August 16th, 2010, from this Monica Hanley to Uma Abedin, yeah, I wonder if somebody hacked in. That stinks. Speaking of stinky.
Yeah.
Right? So, are you telling me nobody in the FBI under Bob Mueller wasn't aware that it might have been risky to use a toilet bowl server system and whatever lack of security
Well, they got a spam email from your blank account, so that indicates that someone was somehow manipulating something to do with these emails.
But this is August 16th, 2010, which is what? Right before the midterm election. Kind of thing that if the server came out before the midterm election, when people were most unhappy with the course of the Obama administration and the economy, that might have been a tipping point, where Hillary Clinton has been operating, and Bill Clinton have been operating their foundation while she's Secretary of State over non-secure servers and email devices, and they got hacked.
Yeah.
You know, that might call into question the stewardship of America's foreign policy at a critical moment when the Middle East was burning with the stupid Arab Spring idea. So, and again, the FBI has had this for how long? And Mueller...
9 years.
Yeah, and Mueller, you know, as head of the
he
FBI.
was the FBI director.
You know, how could you not know? And maybe it was because Stroke was, who knows the person who was in charge of checking whether there were any threats posed by this system. But I mean, to me, this is boneheaded is, you know, 45 degrees of magnitude more impressive than this, right? This is absurd. These people thought they should be president of the United States, run the administration, and we're running our foreign policy?
And they don't even know how to use a laptop.
They don't even or email.
It's ridiculous.
So to continue, we now look ahead, so we don't have to do that. Let's go to 96. And 96 is interesting because I was a co-signer of the Stop Qatar Now movement with a bunch of people who really knew, I think, what they're doing. And this is a reference on September 20th, 2010. I saw the Qatari Prime Minister, Hamad bin Jassim. This is somebody called Jeffrey Feitman, whoever that is. But on the next page...
It was like totally redacted.
No...
yeah, 97 is totally white.
Okay. Well, anyway,
98.
maybe it was further up here. They discuss a moratorium. Anyway, well, Qatar's role, financing, what was going on in terms of overturning these various regimes across the Middle East, maybe in what was going on in Benghazi, Hillary Clinton's communications with the Qatari government and leadership are highly suspicious when you layer on the fact, as we're going to show you in a second, that in defiance of Obama's orders, valid orders, that Sidney Blumenthal was to be off the property, he seems to be very actively involved, sending clandestine memos to Hillary that are then in turn sent over an unsecure system anybody could have hacked. We're going to show you a few of those in a second. We go back into the guide here. 122. Okay. This is on December 16th, 2010. You see here, this is Jacob Sullivan, in the next block down, to Uma. What Hillary passed over, what Hillary needs, Hillary needs is an email that is not going through so that she can check where it gets blocked. She also wants the name of the Clinton email administrator.
How does she not know?
Not sure how to handle this because it's really Hillary R. Clinton emails, December 16th, 2010, right? There's a lot of, what I have been looking for and what is missing in the Podesta emails are this sort of an email, you know, like, what do we do now with all these emails going out that are not secure? There are concerns about this could get hacked. What do we do? What's the fix? What's the workaround? Those are strangely missing. Now, you know, if we had the integrity, no integrity concerns, we knew that, you know, every freaking email that went out under the Hillary Clinton period when she was Secretary of State went only through this supposedly impenetrable great system that the State Department and our government has. If we knew that, we wouldn't be sitting here grasping in the dark trying to understand what truly did happen. But here's more evidence of ridiculous. If you look at 128, okay. I had to show, this is Justin Cooper to Abedin on January 9th, 2011. I had to shut down the server. Someone was trying to hack us. And while they did not get in, I didn't want to let them have the chance, so I'll restart it in the morning. And Uma responds, oh my God. Okay? And you and the FBI couldn't like say, you know, we're not going to ask for Abedin's voluntary compliance to give us all the shit she stole in league with the Clintons when she was, in theory, working for the U.S. government. We're going to Roger Stone Manafort that woman, you know. And then they get the damn Abedin and Wiener laptop with supposedly 340,000 emails on it, and they decide, as we explained in the last show, well, of course, we're not going to look at those. That's right before the election. If the public found out about that, then Hillary would lose.
What is this right here? It says Huma Abedin, SBU State. What is SBU?
That's where we need help.
And then SES is Senior Executive Services, recipients, Abedin H. So this is like, Huma Abedin is an SES?
Could well have been.
That's like the first time we've heard anything about that.
And let's look here. These things here, I'm not sure what they mean and why they appear in the email in this way, but maybe experts will be able to tell us. A lot of these things show up for the first time in these documents that I've seen.
This is programming stuff, true, false, folder ID. I don't know what this is.
I think what it is when you look at a standard email, for example, the Podesta emails, you'll see the version that we see because they're configured, we don't want to see all the technical stuff. And then you can hit another little flag and you can look at the
Headers.
well, not just the headers, you can look at all this, the actual way in which things were routed and all these numbers and symbols and whatever. The real IT experts likely knew long ago in the FBI that all this stuff was mishandled classified information. None of this stuff was supposed to go outside the state secure system. And so people decided to repackage it, and in repackaging it, they may have left off stuff that's crucial so that an expert could look at this and say, obviously this was doctored. Or they may have shown you a trail which an expert can get into and says, oh, this shows clearly that, for this flag reason or whatever, this is false. So I don't know what this means, but let's get some experts helping us understand.
Now, we've got a good question here, Charles, from Mike Patton. He's saying, is this the absolute evidence of intent that Comey said he didn't have?
Exactly. Now, I would go back to when I heard Comey say that, I knew the guy was a blockhead a long time ago, but when he said, the guy who's leading the FBI says, here's somebody, the only Secretary of State in the history of Secretaries of State to decide to manage 100% of all their communications on non-secure servers and non-secure devices outside the purview of the federal government, and decided while she was Secretary of State to eliminate or not fill the role of Inspector General, so that nobody would be asking any tough questions. Just day one, I think there's evidence of intent starting in June of 2008.
Forget about call those pesky questions, Charles.
That's right. So
you and your pesky questions.
So let's look at page 146.
Page 146. Coming right up.
All right. Okay. This is.
It's harder to read for some reason.
Yeah, maybe make it a little smaller. This is April 10th, 2011. So over a year before the dread events in Benghazi. Okay. It says here it's important. It's to H, right, which is her private email address, not to the estate owner. This is probably a classified document, or was a classified document at the time. They say it's important. And we look at per Special Envoy Stevens, the gentleman who died. The situation in some town in Libya has worsened to the point where Stevens is considering departure from Benghazi, April 10th, 2011.
Wow.
They talk about the various niceties of doing it. And it says here, the Brits report Gaddafi forces are moving from one place to another, which they interpret as a preparation. So here's evidence that, you would expect this to be the case, that the US and the Brits are collaborating. But this, we were told on Libya, Congress considered Libya, Republicans and Democrats alike, and said, thou shalt not fuck around in Libya, given all the other places we screwed up. And Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton said, oh, this is a kinetic military adventure.
Adventure.
Or something like that, or episode, or whatever. And here you begin to see that, when what's his name, Trey Gowdy was ridiculed, not for his haircuts, but for, persisting on Benghazi, ridiculed by the, quotes, intelligentsia, for having real concerns about what could have been going on in Benghazi. My suspicion, my strong suspicion, which is confirmed by this and other documents we'll get into in a second, is that Hillary and Sid Blumenthal and the people around the Clinton Foundation with ties to Libya and interest in monetizing the vast wealth of Libya were concocting a bunch of crooked schemes that they were determined to do with their other globalist friends around the world and not have the world understand that the U.S. was playing such a vital role in it. And then they divvy up the spoils and ask everybody to thank them for their great service to the rest of humanity. You know, this to me is the beginnings of a very, I mean, this latest dump is, I think, by far and away the most incriminating set of documents that I've seen out of this so far.
Wow.
So we go then back into the index. And I'm going quickly through this because we don't have massive time here. We go to 155 and 6. 55. Okay, this again is to Hillary early in the first year of her being Secretary of State. It's from Hillary. She's sending it to Uma at Clinton email, right? And remember the background that Obama was so pissed off, and rightfully so, at Sid, because he felt that Sid had orchestrated that picture of Michelle and Barack as terrorists in the White House with
the New Yorker,
right? And so that's why he was public stuff. He was banished, you know, from the Obama administration. So to get around that, they said, well, we'll pay you out of the Clinton Foundation. We won't disclose in the Clinton Foundation documents that we're doing that. And here's a memo. It's marked confidential, November 24th, 2009, for Hillary from Sid. And it says, look at this. Former CIA station chief in Pakistan, one member of the small group that ran the war against the Soviets. Okay, and we're beginning to see why these people might want to accuse Trump of being in league with Russia. This fellow has sent a memo that you should read, and it's dated the 24th of November 2009, marked confidential. How did Sid get it? Because I don't know how he has any kind of clearance, but this is clearly something sent on a private server system that was insecure, that was about to get hacked. You know, how many different people around the world who are serious people would have figured out very rapidly that the Barack Obama administration and Hillary Clinton were conducting our international operations from a toilet bowl, right? Easily hacked toilet bowl. How many people figured that out? How much of this stuff, you know, was being read in real time by our enemies and rivals around the world? And we're going to debate whether there's a mishandling of classified information set of issues involving Hillary Clinton and the people around her. We're going to even waste time debating that? We're going to let her run for president? It's ridiculous.
You know, Charles, just back on this New Yorker cover for a moment, the fact that Hillary, you know, it's one thing somebody does something rogue and you're like, oh man, that was way out of line. Yeah, you got to go. Sorry, we can't work with you anymore. But the fact that Hillary is jumping through hoops and, you know, using sort of back doors to keep Sid in there makes me wonder if she doesn't encourage this type of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, again, the thesis was, well, we don't have any emails or anything from before around, you know, December 1st or so, thereabouts, or January 21st, 2009. Because I'm sure there are emails that people have that will document for Sid Blumenthal's protection. He probably documented, you know, well, yeah, why don't I go to the New Yorker and get them to do something, you know, after the truce at Dianne Feinstein's house, just to keep Obama, you know, not so sure of himself that he really does need the Clintons. I mean, who knows how the negotiations were progressing from June of 2008 forward through the election about what the Clintons would get in return for helping Obama defeat McCain. So then, page 159 is perhaps one of my personal favorites here, if we can go to that one. This is like, this is from Hillary to Uma, March 9th, 2011. The headline, Serious Trouble for Libya Rebels, Sid, okay? And Hillary says that genius, the smartest lawyer in the world, in a written email, E stands for evidence, can you print it for me without any identifiers? i.e., can you print this out so that I can read it in a place I shouldn't be reading it, and could you break all the laws that apply to handling misclassified information for me?
By taking off
Uma.
the identifiers.
And Uma's reaction is basically, and here's the latest report. Stop here for a second. Private individuals in Europe, now that could be the UK, with ties to the leadership of the National Libyan Council, plan to urge the committee to consider hiring mercenaries. March 9th, 2011. What was the sense of Congress then? You know, what was Congress telling the Barack Obama? I mean, now we've got Nadler needs to do this to regulate Trump, and Shifty Schiff needs to do something else. What was Congress telling the administration, the Barack Obama administration, about adventurism in Libya on March 9th, 2011 and afterwards? And was the Obama administration blatantly defying or exceeding its authority to engage in yet another diabolically bad adventure, which has culminated in the existence in Libya today of one of the largest open slave markets in the world? Okay, it's hard to call that a legacy that you'd want to brag about. And now here you see why, I think, these people, the brave people in the FBI vault, we see why the people have been resisting document production out of state and CIA and elsewhere, dealing with Benghazi. Benghazi is about gross abuse of power. It is a betrayal of our national ideals that should unite this country and hold us favorably distinguished, for the most part, from many other places. And we absolutely now must forthwith see all the stuff that's been held back. We need a complete declassification to the extent possible of as much material to fill in these holes so we can hold these people accountable in Congress, in the courts, financially, and for posterity, to teach a lesson that you cannot do this shit.
Alexander Thompson is telling us that it's the French that they're referring to as the people from Europe.
Okay, all right, could be. Alexander, I appreciate that sentiment. Could well be, you know.
There was a lot of French interaction with Libya, of course, and then, you know, Gaddafi had given 50 million euros to Sarkozy for his campaign, and perhaps he found it easier to have him killed than pay him back and face the music for illegal campaign financing.
Well, if we turn to 164, and here's another, you know, remember this person allowed herself to be on multiple, you know, in multiple stories as one of the smartest women in the world, people in the world, smartest lawyers in the world. Okay. They say they've had issues sending secure fax. They're working on it. This is Jacob Sullivan to Hillary, June 17th, 2011. Just stop for a second. And what's Hillary's response? Okay, they say they've had issues sending a secure fax. If they can't, turn it into non-paper with no identifying heading and send non-secure.
What is non-paper?
Electronic.
That's weird.
No, it's not. She's basically instructing Jake Sullivan to break the law.
Yeah.
Okay, here it is in black and white. And it's not like you could see maybe if it was February 3rd, 2009. She's been there for 2 days. She's just figuring out where the coffee is. And,
yeah, she's still been the first lady. I mean,
well, she's running Secretary of State. That's a big job, right? I mean, you got all these embassies and people who could give bribes to who could work with your foundation. I mean, here she is. This is June 17th, 2011. She's been there all of 2000, most of 2009, all of 2010, and almost half of 2011. You know, brazenly operating this absurd system. And now she's telling this willing idiot, co-conspirator Jake Sullivan, you know, if you can't send me by a secure fax, just send it non-secure. Nobody will figure it out. So then we get to, I think it's 166.
This is weird, Charles. All this garbledy-gook, like non-character stuff. Hard to say what this is all about.
But what's more interesting, a little bit down the page, this is on September 20th, 2012. Let me just stop right here. December 20th, 2012 is right around the time of the Clinton Global Initiative, the illegal Clinton Global Initiative, which had been in theory organized September 4th, 2012, but this morning I was just checking, and on November 15th, 2004, the Clinton Foundation secured the domain www.clintonglobalinitiative.org in 2004, before holding the first meeting in September 2005. So they've been operating this graft initiative for a long time. Here's the meeting, September 20th, 9 days after what happened in Benghazi. They're shepherding Mohammed Morsi around, and they're trying to figure out some logistical issues. So we don't know who this is to quite yet. It says, I have some classified papers. Could I leave them in your car when he goes inside? We don't know who the he is. Before that, we have John Davidson to Uma Abedin. We'll be at the Essex House in 10 minutes. The Essex House could be the hotel here in New York. Then from Uma to John Davidson. When does William J. Clinton arrive? I might need to stash some sensitive stuff in his car. Okay, this is a person who, Chuck Grassley, if you're listening, Uma Abedin became an employee of 4 different interests in June of 2012, as Mohammed Morsi was going crazy, as he became, leader of Egypt, and as he was now saying he's basically going to be a dictator.
Yeah.
She, somebody who speaks Arabic, and had been working in the State Department, simultaneously is employed from June 29th, 2012 forward in the State Department, for Teneo, for the Clinton Foundation, and for the Clinton family. And this is somebody saying, when does Bill Clinton arrive? I might need to stash some sensitive stuff in his car.
Yeah.
Like, where is the judgment on this person? And the judgment on the people who would keep somebody like this employed?
Well, there's a number of other weird things about this particular message. So the same viewer here, Alexander Thompson, is saying that the gobbledygook is an ASCII text conversion error from some non-UTF format. Now, I mean, I suspected that it was some sort of computer error, so that makes some kind of sense what he's saying, but I don't fully understand it, and I also don't understand why that would be present here. I want to point out some other differences about this message as compared to the others we've been seeing. What's this outline around the letters? That's very strange. It's almost
as if they pasted it on each page.
It's been cut out and pasted from somewhere or something strange. So that's weird. I don't understand why that would be happening, but it's suggestive. I mean, what I've seen in some of these legal documents that I've been looking at, Freedom Watch sent us some emails that were part of a FOIA request in their suit against the special counsel's office. The lawyers have a tendency to print these emails out and then provide scans of the printed page so that you can't easily search a huge volume of documents. If it were a text document, we could search it. But I just wonder what all of this weird crap is all about. And I mean, you give this to some lawyer on a printed page, and I guess maybe you're satisfying some rule of discovery or whatever, but is there something tricky about this?
Of course there is. I mean, the electronic, I'm no expert on this stuff, but the electronic version of a message is going to have a lot of information in it that the printed version will not.
Yeah.
And we remember, when people were talking about, we've got this new facility out in Nevada where
Bluffdale, Utah, and all those.
Yeah, wherever it was that we're going to keep all the metadata, and Barack Obama and others were saying, metadata, don't worry about that. There's baloney, and salami and turkey
Bill
and
Binney
roast beef.
says it's all the data.
Right. So if we go back into the slides, we'll just fly through this a little bit, but there are a few more things to talk about on this. 232. And we're going to save the most explosive thing for last. It's not this. 232 is the beginning of somebody at the FBI vault wanting to make us understand what sort of messages should be shown to somebody going into the state system or the secure system. It says here, you're about to enter a Department of State computer system. What do you think happens at the Clinton toilet bowl server system? Do you think they'd have any of that going on? Of course not. And this is something that was put in place before Hillary became Secretary of State. It was put in place, if this is correct, July 16th, 2008. So the people at the FBI vault, I think here, are trying to get us to understand what should have been visible to all the people who were around this toilet bowl server system should have been seeing these type of warnings. Instead, they're just getting these doctored versions of highly sensitive and classified, maybe special access protocol information being shown to them with no warning that you shouldn't be seeing this. This message basically says if you don't have authority to do this, you could be breaking whatever 18 U.S.C. 1030 is, serious problems for you. If you're not authorized to see, get the hell off this system and destroy. And this thing, if we just scroll through it, Jason, goes on and on and on. Many different messages here. And I think, to me, what the FBI is signaling to me, whoever did this, is this did not happen by accident. A lot of thought went into the establishment of the server system, the non-secure devices. The Clintons, who had been burned before when Bill was president on email, Bush had been burned as well on email issues, they did not want to get burned, and they definitely in advance, they knew the risks, they tried to work around the risks. They also probably believed that Barack Obama would never call them on it and that she'd be the president. And if we go to the final thing, here's the 262 and 3. This 262 and 260 the other way. Is it not moving?
262. Oh, sorry, 232.
Yeah.
Small type.
It's okay. This, to me, is a mega bunch. Let's see, keep going. 263, I guess it is. Okay. This is dated the 12th of February, 2009. So it's this year. Okay? And
2019.
Right. 2019. And apparently, this is an internal memo in the Washington field office saying, you know what? Important notes that should have been in the file are missing. And these notes relate to a meeting held at the Washington, D.C. FBI headquarters in early August 2015. So you remember the train of thought was concern about mishandling escalates into a formal FBI meeting on investigation by July 10th, 2015. Now meeting notes from a pivotal meeting are missing in the file, and a disk, a separate thing that's in here, a disk that was supposed to be, intact, is damaged beyond repair.
Wow.
And this is noticed February 12th, 2019. And if you're Christopher Wray, I mean, I'm not, I would have no interest in government, but if somebody forced me to run the FBI, and I saw this memo, that's what Guantanamo's for. I mean, you cannot
destruction of evidence.
And something
FBI.
this sensitive within the Washington field office, we got to figure out what happened here.
Who did that?
And it means that the Washington field office does not have proper control over crucial evidence.
Right.
We're spending $7 trillion a year on government. You would think that the world's premier investigative service would have systems and people in place to maintain this vitally important information. And he gets to a certain point. I remember being on the board of an investment company where we had some problems, and I saying, listen, to the manager, the issue is not about firing you. That will happen. The issue is about how many of us should be fired.
Wow.
When you get to something like this, and you're Christopher Wray, supposedly Yale Law School smart graduate, a smart guy.
Yeah.
You've known this is sensitive. You've given these smug speeches around and appearances in Congress that everything's under control, and this shit's happening. There's got to be a major league adjustment in attitude at the FBI, and an adjustment in a way we get to the bottom of what's happening. This obstruction of Tom Fitton's investigation. He seems to be the only person, and Clayman and others, but they are the people who seem to be moving towards the truth, whereas, some fatty tissue, or worse than that, in the judicial branch and in the FBI is resisting and resisting and resisting. Enough already. Declassify, show us the truth, let the crowdsource community and people like us get into what's really happening, and let's reform this, because this is really not serving America's interests.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, how do they not investigate this?
I don't. Yeah, it says on or about. They attempt to locate 1A4 described as a meeting, as notes from meeting, and you look at the next page. I think it tells you when. the meeting occurred, or maybe a little bit further down, you get to it. So this just dropped, as I said, Friday night. I actually had other things to do, and I didn't spend an enormous amount of time on this, so people who want to look through it, I would encourage you, particularly experts, to look through this, see what stuff I've missed. Maybe there's a more important stuff. But we need to motivate the folks in government. Sorry, just to clear one thing. You could, at the very bottom here, through the 32-part dump on Hillary, it's, all of the people around Hillary, they negotiate, they raise objections to testifying, they negotiate these agreements where they have, they voluntarily produce some stuff, but they impose conditions on the government, and then on the other hand, they send more people into Manafort's home than were used to get Osama bin Laden, right? And we can get mired in the minutia. It's important to do that, but at the same time, we need to move back from the scene of the crime and say, no, wait a minute. If you don't believe there's a double standard when it comes to the Clintons by now, then you are stone cold stupid.
Yeah.
And why is there such a double standard? It's not like these people have cured cancer and...
I think they've been super effective at wrangling the largest number of people you could possibly imagine, and not just the largest number, but they've got all the right people in the scheme, or at least enough in the scheme that if they decide they want to blow the whistle, it's like, oh, well, by the way, you accepted this money, you did this, that, the other thing, you're coming down too.
Well. So if we go, we're going to fly through the balance of this. It was important that we spend an inordinate amount of time on this FBI vault, but there are a few more points to make. This is an article in here in the Epoch Times, which I've begun to look more and more into that newspaper.
That's where I got the picture.
All about Dearlove, and all about, it's a very lengthy piece that I would encourage people to read and savor. But it gets into the many in quotes coincidences, and suggests, this is from last year, that the UK and Australia have a lot to be worried about here. UK, Dearlove and MI6, Australia, Downer, and Dearlove and Downer are all tied in with Steele and others. It's a long article, traces all the connections, or many of the connections. There are more articles like this that we could go through. But we need to turn up the heat on this mysterious man, Sir Richard Dearlove, and this history to understand the context that would set up the current conditions where so many people would be interested in trying to allege that Donald Trump is a puppet of the Russians. So I'll leave, well, at the very bottom here it says in red, Steele retains close ties with Dearlove, consulted with Dearlove while they're in the process of producing documents for the dossier. So Dearlove was involved in this dirty dossier.
Never heard this name before today.
Yeah, which is completely discredited, the dossier. And then look at this final paragraph. A good point to start it is in late 2015, not July 31st, 2016, late 2015. Britain's GCHQ was involved in collecting information regarding then candidate Trump and transmitting it to the United States in late 2015. How did that happen? Could it have had anything to do? I'm just trying to think, in quotes, try to think the way the Clintons, in quotes, think, because it's debatable whether they're thinking. Here, you have the FBI investigation move into high gear, in theory, but June 10th, 2015. You got Terry McAuliffe doing everything he can do to bribe McCabe and his wife, starting in March of 2015. But the FBI thing happens, and who knows what resistance there was to open the investigation. It happens. They need to have a counterweight. So somehow, GCHQ, of all the people to pick on, maybe GCHQ didn't need to do much intelligence to know that low energy Jeb was not going to be the candidate. But here, in late 2015, before it was clear that Trump, anywhere close to clear that Trump was going to be the nominee, GCHQ is collecting info on Trump and sending it to the U.S., according to this article.
I think it's also interesting to note, Charles, that you and I have spoken quite a bit about Peter W. Smith, who was looking for the missing Hillary Clinton emails, a legitimate thing for a journalist to look for, given all this information we have from the FBI and other indicators that astute people could have seen that there was something going on with Hillary Clinton's email worth investigating. Matt Tate, who's with the Lawfare blog and that seemingly fake company, Alpha Capital Securities, started with £1, closed in less than 2 years. He was a GCHQ guy. Is he somehow connected to these people? And is he, he's obviously connected to Ben Wittes, who's running that Lawfare blog, the Brookings Institute. We've seen Hillary Clinton giving speeches at the Brookings Institute. There's all these interconnections between these think tanks and intelligence things and private intelligence companies and security companies. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're going to get back to this, but I wanted just to begin. This is a new name for me as well. I like it.
Dearlove is.
Yeah, to encourage the crowd to start looking into this. Now, we're not going to pull up any of these links.
How did you hear about Dearlove?
Just happened to notice it's been in the news. Different people have contacted me, and I just happened to, I read voraciously, and I started seeing these articles. Wait a minute. And also our good friend Fabien Chalandon in outside the U.S. has been bending my ear on email for many months on him. This, just to refresh people's recollection, before early May in 2015, when supposedly a private attorney contacted Comey to say, you really should investigate the Clinton Foundation, these are a series of articles that appeared. The first article, I'd forgotten, you write a lot of articles, you forget, at least I do forget. I forgot that my first article in Breitbart on the 15th of February 2015, experts correctly fear rising threats from Russia, Iran as White House stays idle. I wrote that. Right? So where are we now? We're now in a zone where we're supposed to say that Trump is a Russian agent, but Obama has a legacy. I don't get that. Then I started writing the one that got a lot of attention was this with so many red flags. Right. We put that up before, but the earlier articles, March 4th, right around the time of we discovered the private emails, I get this piece in. Then the Teneo and BC Partners argument with the large British international fund has invested in this very dodgy, in my view, supposed advisory and investment firm run by Doug Band. Seemed to me to create a lot of problems for any kind of candidacy that wanted to get through the minefield of arguing that the Clinton Foundation wasn't a pay-for-play operation. And then this 2 articles appeared on the 16th. This got a lot, but this got very little attention, that the foundation financial statements were shambles. And I take people through some of the concerns that have only lingered and festered since then, even though Hillary was centrally involved. Then I begin my site. Corsi picks up on it on this 22nd of April. And actually, let's shamelessly plug this one thing here. We've had this up before, but it's interesting to write something and then go back and look and see, how close you were to being accurate 4 years later. But this was written 4 years ago. I don't know if it'll come up.
Sorry.
And there are...
This one or the...
No, sorry, not that one. The one above it.
It's giving me difficulties.
Yeah, there we go. If we go down this page a little bit, at the bottom, I ask a bunch of questions, and this thing, I forget how many pages it is maybe 20 pages or so, but there's a fair amount of detail in here, and I began this exercise. This is the first one where I like to call each of these projects, I started with a question. I call this false philanthropy question, right? And it's really worth, people who are trying to, look at this and understand it, go back to this first memo. And if people are going to do any serious journalism, which is a big question at, say, the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times on the subject, why don't you go see how many of those questions you can answer off of the publicly available information. You'll see these lingering questions underscore the idea that the Clinton Foundation has been a fraud in the Latin term ab initio, from the beginning. It's been a complete fraud. It was set up as a fraud to raise money to pay off the lawyers Williams and Connolly and Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings,
Right.
who would run up big bills trying to defend the Clinton from justified investigations. You know, this was never about charity. This is about getting
that's
paid.
how they solved the problem. They're like, no more of these investigations.
That's right. Stop that.
Can't have that.
Right. But interestingly, also Brett Baer. This is something. This YouTube thing is interesting. Yeah, this is picked up by YouTube, and maybe Fox doesn't care about his YouTube coverage. But look how few views. Only 67,000 views for something that Brett did.
Well, but this isn't an actual Fox. This is Viewing Liberties. Somebody
Right.
took the Fox video and posted it. And only 3,000 subscribers, so that's actually quite a lot of views.
Okay. But nonetheless, you know, this was very much on April 24th, 2015, 4 days after I did my piece. Obviously, Schweitzer had done a lot more work than I had at that point, and I liked what I saw that he'd done, and that encouraged me to dig deeper. The point being here that the mainstream media had enough information to understand that there was a serious set of problems involving the Clinton Foundation. So did the FBI. The FBI had investigated, Comey himself had investigated the Clinton Foundation starting in December, unofficially in December 2001, but officially in January 2002. So Comey knew there were unresolved, serious problems at the Clinton Foundation. The public record suggests there was another investigation, perhaps in 2009, and then, you know, all these lingering questions. So what does Dopey do, right? What does Dopey do? He says, you know what? I think I won't investigate this. Why should I do that?
Sensible FBI director.
Why should I do that?
Yeah.
You know, and at this time, I like to underscore that Donald Trump had not announced. There were rumors that he might run, but he had not announced that he was going to run until June of 2015. This is early May. Well, this period covers through April. I and others banging the drum. There's a problem here. There's a problem here. You know, Bernie making noise about wanting to be president of the United States. You know, why didn't Bernie have anything to say about the Clinton Foundation? Maybe because his wife was involved with a crooked charity herself. But so there was a fair amount of stuff. Now, would I have liked this to be in ABC, Wall Street Journal, Sunday Times, and one? Of course. But you know, back in this time frame, the frame of mind was Hillary Clinton is going to be the nominee. She's going to take on Jeb Bush. The Bushes are powerful. The Clintons are powerful. We don't want to piss either of them off. Both of them are tied to the Clinton Foundation. So let's just drop this hot potato. Let's put it over here in the cool section of warming up hot potatoes. We're not going to touch this. So we go to the next page. Now, one point that you've made, Jason, I want to remind people of. You know, we're all holding out hope that the next IG report is going to be interesting, and that Horowitz is, you know, going to do a yeoman's job. Going back in history, we know that Horowitz finished his report, and somebody, we suspect Rosenstein, forced all kinds of edits to it. And so the document that we have is it's not the classified version, and it's most likely edited from the initial job. If you want to read it, don't pull it up, Jason, but there's a link to it. And on page 446 and 7, this underscores that on May 4th, a private attorney did contact Comey to say, open a public corruption investigation into Hillary Clinton. Now, whether that private attorney had seen any of the work that I did, and more likely it was Schweitzer, and they decided to do absolutely nothing until January of 2016, when it says, FBI opens Clinton Foundation investigations, plural. Okay? So one obvious point here is, why did they wait 7 months? I mean, this is crucial. This is, 4 years ago. We're almost in the same place that they were. This is, when the momentum is building, you're up to 23 crazy candidates on the Democratic side. We don't know how many yet are going to challenge Trump. And people are saying, hey, open an investigation into Clinton for public corruption. And Dopey Comey says, I can't do that.
Stuff to do here.
I'm not going to get paid if I do that.
Exactly.
I'd like her to be president because I have all this dirt on her.
Yeah.
Right? So why did they wait so long? Why did they ignore the obvious frauds? I mean, it doesn't take a genius to go and say, all right, let's look at the Clinton Foundation. Did they file a tax return in the first short period when they were in existence in 97? Nah. How about 98? Did they get an audit in 98? No. 99? Nope. 2000? Nope. 2001? But does it comply with? Nope. I mean, it shouldn't have taken the vaunted FBI longer than maybe a couple hours to look into the file that they had. And the record suggests that they had operatives going around chasing down donors, this blind alley, that blind. For 4 years, they couldn't see an obvious fraud. Then, when Dearlove was head of MI6, MI6 would most likely, and other governments, have operatives all across the countries of the world that are agitating for foreign aid. They should be chasing down, when somebody says we need 100 million pounds for Tanzania, we might want to check and see that the 100 million pounds, if we let it loose for Tanzania, ends up in Tanzania and not in a Geneva Swiss bank account
or whatever it is that they intended to do there.
Right. And so, here's the UK government was certainly on its game under Dearlove in 2001. And here's a guy who, I know if it were me in that position and if it were legal, I'd certainly want to have the US government understand, is the leader of the UK crooked? Is the leader of France crooked? Russia, China, whatever. We got to know that. Right? It's a totally legitimate thing to understand when you're trying to have a summit meeting with somebody else. Is this person basically in hock to shady interests, shady for-profit, illegal interests, is a fair question to wonder about. And so you would think that maybe Mr. Dearlove and MI6 and others would have been all over this Clinton Foundation, and the idea that an entity that was supposed to be building a research center and a library in Little Rock was flying Bill Clinton around with Epstein and other people into dodgy countries where it had no authority to do anything, in theory, inventing these projects to fight HIV/AIDS with people who had no medical training, no controls, no
water.
That somebody at MI6 would have said, what the hell is Clinton doing over here? He's giving speeches at the Princess Diana Foundation in the UK.
There was somebody at MI6 who hacked into Bill Clinton's diary. It was a guy named Gareth Williams. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
He wound up stuffed into a gym bag, dead in his apartment. We've got some interesting comments coming here from the chat, Charles. We've got Kevin reminding us, don't forget, Jill McCabe began running March 2015. And someone else, Bob Rogers, is telling us that Comey's daughter works as a lawyer in the Southern District of New York, and he tells us not to follow the wives, but to follow the families.
That's a very smart point. So, and then on all this, we've told you before that in the important line for government donations on the Clinton Foundation, where this thing gets its authority to be a tax-exempt foundation because it claims to be serving government and public interests. There's an important line on the forms which says, how much did you get by way of government contributions? And from 1998, 10 years through 2007, the answer is nothing, zero, nada. The answer in California and New York, states that require you to give detailed breakdowns of government grants, is again, nothing. Why did these donors who were parting, Saudi Arabia in 2004 with $10 million bucks, why did they say that, okay, we gave $10 million to the Clinton Foundation, but this form over here says they didn't get anything? Why did no government complain about this? Could it be that many of these governments were in on the game? That is a line of reasoning that if we want to drain the swamp, you've got to go down that track. You've got to understand the answer to my question, and then you also have to understand why is it that we didn't ask that question before. So if we go to the next page. This is really, defining bonehead in a sentence, right? Comey told us the principle is take no action if it can reasonably be avoided, and there was nothing about the Clinton Foundation investigation that was time sensitive. This is July 7th, 2016. Okay.
It's not time sensitive.
She's going to win.
Presidential election, what's that?
She's going to win. I want her in there so I can blackmail her.
That's just so ridiculous, Charles.
I mean, it's just, and we go back over this record. As a guess, Comey was seriously thinking that Trump was incorruptible, but he had the goods on Hillary.
I don't think that's it. I think that Comey, look, it's like you hear these stories about somebody like name somebody, Steven Spielberg, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods. There are certain people who just set out and say, you know, I'm going to be the best at whatever, movie director, golf player, and they work at it and they say, how am I going to do this? I'm going to, you know, just play golf every day. I'm going to go and put myself in an office at Universal Studios, and when anybody comes by, I'm going to pretend I need to be here. These guys dedicated themselves to identifying the key positions in government that you would need to corrupt or control
I think that's
to
right.
carry out the biggest organized crime set of crimes in history. And they did it. That's what happened. Comey was compromised. Comey just had to do this or he was going to go down, and it's still that case.
Well, again, I'm going to violate the rule of remembering this as a family audience, but Bill Clinton is well known for playing a card game, which is a variant of bridge or hearts or whatever, which is referred to in polite company as oh hell. And in other words, you don't want to get stuck with a card of a certain variety, or a suit. The real name of that game is oh fuck, and that's the moment they're in right now. Because I think we're far enough along in this, 157 episodes of this out there, none contested.
Yeah.
No lawyers' letters, no quibbling, no nothing. All right, and Donald Trump has now passed the Mueller inquiry. Congress is befouling itself, beclowning itself, thinking they're going to actually make any progress at this moment in time with impeachment.
Befouling itself, is that like messing its trousers?
Yeah, exactly. and this is the place they're in, and I think they've been in this place for a while, but no one wanted to admit it. This is a place where you see Barack Obama standing up and saying, "I'm disappointed in Hillary," distancing himself because he knows, you know, you don't. If you put on the one hand over here, you've got, hypothetically speaking, the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund with $1 trillion in it. And then you've got Barack Obama with a $200 million net worth. Do you want to assume that in litigation you're going to do very well against $1 trillion sovereign wealth fund that wants for its people the 150 million back that Norway sent towards these frauds? No, you're going to say, you know, I never did like those Clintons. What incriminating information that I have would you like? Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the place you're in. So this has been a slowly, long process because it's so big and you have to lay it out there for people to consider and soak up. But I think when the end comes, it's going to come suddenly for the Clintons. And if the Obamas don't play correctly, for the Obamas and possibly for the professional advisors, the lawyers, the bankers, the accountants, and anybody who would resist at this moment.
I think there's no way this happens without Obama being held accountable. I mean, you know, if Trump is going to do a proper investigation, even from a selfish standpoint of who spied on me, how does that not get back to Barack Obama?
Yeah. Yeah. So this will be quick. The final slide. I know how much people love numbers. But
Charles, people love the show. I got a lot of emails, you know, one missed episode and I'm ready to be on the chopping block. So people apparently like the numbers.
Well, thanks. So it's my pleasure to do it. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. So considering the period 1977 to 2007, we're looking in, you know, by decade, we're looking at the growth that happened. In 1977, the UK was a basket case. It had been a socialist-controlled, stuck-in-the-mud economy for a long time. And socialism was not working. People make too much hay out of gross domestic product. Gross domestic product, for a lot of people, you're just mind mushes when you think about it. A far simpler way to think about an economy is how much do households spend on basic, you know, expenses, and how much do businesses and governments invest in a year, right? And you could put the UK is roughly a fifth, 20% the size of the United States in population, roughly, depending on the year. But here we see in 1977, the UK population was spending just 13.6% of our households. You would think that, you know, adjusted for currencies, of course, and all that kind of stuff, but you would think that maturing economies, they're not going to be large collections of people. There's not going to be gigantic variations in per capita behavior. So here, it's good news from 1977 to 2007 for the UK. Household consumption, it grows faster in the UK than it does in the US. They go from 174 billion to almost 2 trillion. We go from 1.3 trillion to 10, or to 1.3 trillion to, 9.8. So their share of household consumption rises compared to ours. And then we go through the debacle caused by George W. Bush, frankly, and then exacerbated by Obama, and the UK goes directly into the rat hole. You look here, just to make, I know people like colors as opposed to numbers. For 2008 to 2017, consumption in the UK has not returned to the level that it was in 2007.
Wow.
Generally a bad sign. If you don't have growing consumption by households, you have a declining market. When you are
Is this because of EU, or why is that?
it could, well, all sorts of reasons, because of the Richard Dearloves of the world who want to keep the peasantry down and dependent on government. You could have structural problems. You could have an aging population. You could have too much debt. But generally speaking, when you look at a business, which is really, this is a proxy for the entire business activity within the UK, what people consume, what they spend money on in each year, you're seeing that the UK market is shrinking, right? For 10 freaking years, right? It's tough to argue that that's progress when your market is shrinking. And then you look over here on the fixed capital investment piece, investing in the UK, in 2007, in the heyday of the credit craziness, when people were lending money like drunken sailors or worse, they invested 550 billion in the UK. But in no year since then have they invested, I guess the best was 2014, 500 billion. Every year it's been less. So the UK is shrinking in household consumption and investment spending inside the country under this crazed idea of remaining part of this stifling EU.
Well, Quentin suggests that mass migration might play a role.
Out of the UK?
Into the UK.
That could also hurt it. Exactly, yeah. Mass migration encouraged by the unregulated globalists. So we think about the UK, and I'm a huge fan, though I haven't played in a long time, the card game of bridge and duplicate bridge, where you not only do you just see how a team of 4 people does, 2 teams of 2 each, playing around, you mark yourself on how the best people did. You get 20 people and you deal 20 teams and you deal them, or some number of teams, and you have the same hands dealt
bridge
to all the
tournament.
Yeah, the bridge tournament, and you don't grade yourself on just did you make the contract that you were trying to make. It's what's the best you could have done, and you look at this. This is certainly not the best that the UK could have done from 2007 to the present. Do you really want to, at this moment in time, say, you know what? I have information that could be extraordinarily valuable to the Trump administration in the UK. I know what the Clintons were up to across Africa, the MI6 in India and elsewhere, because we have been there a long time. We have deeply stuck in human intelligence and all sorts of records, and we've been watching this for a long time, hoping that we could cling to the Euro sausage approach of the European Union, but now we see the direction. There's an episode of Yes, Prime Minister or something where they're trying to come up with a name for British sausages which will be outlawed under the EU or whatever. But we've wasted all this time on the EU project. It's not going to work. And you're sitting there in the UK, you've got this referendum coming up October 31st, you got Donald Trump going over to see the Queen later this month, you've got the election shaping up. So far, unless Trump has a health issue, it would seem as if, high likelihood Trump will trounce any of the announced candidates so far.
Yeah.
And by the time they get finish shooting at one another, there's not going to be much fight left in the Democrat. You really want to sit there in the UK and say, rather than go cap in hand to the Trump administration, send feelers out, we have the goods on this. We will now explain to you what really happened.
Why would he trust them?
No, we got the long trail. We've had the goods on the Clintons ever since he was a Rhodes Scholar and decided he didn't want to finish for some strange reason, sit for exams. We know that there was a problem in Oxford, but for some reason they won't come forward and tell us. We know that there are all sorts of scandals that have been covered up involving these people. You want to sweep this away once and for all. Okay, we'll help you with that. And now you can help us with a trade deal once we exit the EU. And we'll discipline people who are involved in this corruption. You can discipline your people. Your people will implicate our people will implicate your people, and we'll get this done a lot more quickly than pretending that everything's fine, because it ain't fine.
It's like the Washington, D.C. version of that L.A. joke. Have your people implicate my people, and my people implicate your people.
Right.
That's great.
So with that,
is that it, Charles?
That could be it.
Really? Well, I mean, there's still a lot of numbers here that we could talk about, but basically it's that the EU hasn't been doing as well as the Queen of England might like. Or maybe this is exactly what the Queen of England
No,
wants.
I honestly, I think that numbers tell an important story when you think about the evolution of a national economy. And in the UK, I remember at business school, the UK was a basket case, and we were getting lectures about how, in fact, in 1978, I took a course, a seminar course on the subject of Eurocommunism. And back in 1978, it was accepted wisdom that Western Europe would go communist. Forget about the Berlin Wall falling. I remember getting a lecture from these people, all kinds of smart people who were absolutely wrong, that there's no evidence of communism ever deciding to eliminate communism. There's no evidence. It will never happen. It's been a force in France and Italy. It's going to grow in Spain. It'll come to the UK. Get used to communism, because that's going to be in your future. And that certainly didn't. And maybe Hillary Clinton was.
Yeah, that's what they've been. Well, Barack Obama was president. He's arguably a Marxist, weather underground supporter.
Not a Marx Brothers.
Not a Marx Brothers, Marxist Brothers. That would be a good episode. Well, Charles, with that, we wrap up another Sunday with Charles. We'll be back next Sunday. I want to thank everybody for watching. So many enthusiastic people about the show. It's so important that you become a sponsor if you're watching every week. The show can't continue week in and week out without audience sponsorship. So I hope people will go to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, or of course paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth. I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you, Charles, for another great presentation. That was some serious bombshell stuff. And I'll see everybody tomorrow.